Hi there. Welcome back to the Out of the Cave podcast with Lisa Schlossberg. I'm your host, Lisa Schlossberg, a licensed social worker, certified health coach, personal trainer, and yoga instructor. If you, like I have, struggle with your relationship with food, eating, and body image, I am here with this podcast to guide you into healing the relationship you have with yourself through a trauma-informed, holistic, and mind-body-soul approach. Together, we can support you in building a lifestyle of more peace, freedom, safety, and power. Hello, and welcome back to the Out of the Cave podcast. This is me, Lisa Schlossberg, and you are here again. So before we dive into this episode, I am back with an important announcement or a reminder. I just want to put back on your radar about next Monday, if you're listening to this in real time, next Monday, June 8th at 6 p.m., I'm going to be hosting a live, free workshop about journaling for weight loss. So I know I've talked about this a little bit, but I just again want to remind you to sign up for it. The link is in the show notes, so you can find all the data and information you need there. But basically, this is about identifying not just how journaling, and not just journaling, but other emotional healing techniques that we can integrate into the healing journey around food, how they can help with something like intentional weight loss. But honestly, I think even more important than that is clarifying the ways that they don't always help. So how do we address something like intentional weight loss physically and emotionally? Because you are, as you already know from listening to this podcast, a spiritual being having a physical experience with an animal brain in a social context surviving on food. So how are we supposed to do something like intentional weight loss if you're a physical and emotional being and spiritual being? How do we use emotional healing techniques and modalities while also keeping it grounded in the physical reality of things? So if you are interested in exploring this question, getting some answers, that's what this workshop is about. So next Monday, June 8th, 6 p.m. for free. I hope to see you there, and I hope you love this episode. See you next week. Hello, and welcome back to the Out of the Cave podcast. This is me, your host, Lisa Schlossberg, and we are back. We are back with Solo Series, episode 25. And part of the reason that I'm already giggling is because, well, if you are watching the video of this, you can see maybe that Neville, my cat, is sitting on my lap because there is a weighted blanket on my lap that he likes to knead on. So he is making himself comfortable on me. And here's the thing. You might be able, because this microphone picks up a lot, you might even be able to hear that. There might be some purring in the background. And you might be wondering, why then, Lisa, are you keeping him on your lap? If we can hear that noise, potentially hear that noise. And I will tell you the reason why is because if I don't, he will create such a ruckus. He will make so much more noise than if I just let him do what he's doing, because this is Neville's world and I just live in it. He owns me. I do not own him. So anyway, so that is how we find ourselves this afternoon. I'm back in my emotional support beanie, as you can probably see. I am back in my sweats because it is once again, I guess April showers, It is gloomy, dark, cold, rainy, and today we needed the sweats. So, anyway, that's my personal check. That's the first part of my personal check-in. There are another couple things I'm going to share, but I want to, welcome you officially. Welcome back. Okay, now, having said that, the other part of the personal check-in that I want to share with you today is that I just did a thing that I am proud of. And it actually reminds me of the episode where I talked about drinking too much coffee. And after I drank too much coffee, and I knew that that's what I was doing, I checked in with myself, and it was revealed to me that how I'm feeling is very anxious. And at the time, the story that I told you is that because I became aware of that, then I texted my friend to have a conversation with me that evening because I needed human connection. I needed a safe relationship to really help me process what it is I was going through. And so this morning, what happened, well, I'm not going to give you all the details. The details don't matter, but I found myself in a similar place. And if you want like the inner juicy details, this is what the Patreon is for, where I can share a lot more about how I'm processing my own stuff as it comes up. But what I did was finally, I wrapped up my workout, even though I didn't want to leave the gym. And I finally called my friend, and I was really, really, really angry and upset about something. And I finally cried about it. So anyway, I'm saying all this because not only am I practicing what I preach in a lot of ways, but I had this experience of being so tense and so contracted and so full of anger. And then I had a conversation where I cried and let out a lot of it. And being at this level of, honestly, just embodiment at this point, I can feel such a dramatic shift in the energy in my body. Like I really, really feel like I released so much. I created so much space, and I am able to take such deep breaths compared to where I was a couple hours ago. And so it's amazing. It's always amazing. And honestly, it's kind of annoying. It still is kind of annoying to me that it's like, oh, I needed to feel stuff in order to feel better. But now I'm coming to saying I felt the stuff, and now I feel a lot better. So if you need a reminder, if you need to know that you are not alone and I'm right there with you in this batshit human experience, that is your reminder. And that is how I find myself today. So I wanted to share that because, here I am with you. Now, having said all of that, I'm remembering the reminders that I want to give you about the Patreon. Already mentioned that. Come join me on Patreon for the juiciness, the behind the scenes stuff. And Omega, of course, the Omega retreat, July 12th to the 17th. Please come join me in person. I'm getting really, really excited, especially as we continue all of this conversation. So those are my announcements. That's my check-in. Now let's get into it. Okay, so the first thing that I want to do is come back to text from Bob. Like I said, I think this might be kind of like a recurring, not series within the series, but something I want to like keep coming back to because they're just so good. And he still does not even know that I'm sharing all this because the episode where I started sharing all this has not even come out yet. So it's just this like natural, organic conversation that I'm having with my friend as he's going through the solo series. And so I just want to share some of these reflections with you from Bob. One of the texts that I got was, doing bubble practice with people, thinking of you. It really is a game changer. It makes it easier to manage overwhelm and much easier to separate what's going on inside my head and body as opposed to the social context outside of it. So to me, the reason that I wanted to just share this one is because, like I said a few episodes ago, part of the power of having this vision of your safety bubble is not just when you're meditating, not just when you're working on the subconscious, but to really take that and make it conscious. So again, like what my friend Bob here is doing is he's calling it bubble practice. He has texted me that he's bubble practicing when he's on a walk. He's bubble practicing around people. He's practicing the bubble in these different scenarios. And that I just, again, want to encourage you to do. This isn't just an idea to hang out in your mind when you are sitting still, again, kind of detached from your life or fragmented or compartmentalized, let's say. But you want to do this where you go out into the world and you practice your bubble. I love that idea. So that's what I wanted to share with you there. And also, I think it speaks to me because this is where it first started really landing for me too, is not just understanding the bubble in theory, but when I was around particular people, I would put myself in my bubble. And to his point, what he said, it makes it so much easier to separate the internal from external environment in a way that is not disconnecting from all of it, right? It's not dissociating and disconnecting. It's just drawing that boundary energetically between what's happening inside of you and what's happening outside of you. And there is no better place, I don't think, to practice, to do some bubble practice than when you are with people that you need some energetic protection from. That's the invitation here. Practice your bubble around people. See how it goes. Okay, next text from Bob. I loved this. He said, practicing the bubble again. I'm getting bubble jacked. I'm getting bubble jacked. And then he said, also practicing full breaths with a relaxed belly. These are all reminders of things you want to be practicing. Then he says, as someone with chronic social anxiety, this is such a gain. I love you, dog. Okay. So again, we're talking about chronic pain. We're talking about anxiety. We're talking about your breath, your posture, your physiology, and how much power you have to relax and soften what's going on internally in terms of, your muscles, essentially, how you're holding yourself, and how you're breathing. So again, just reminders, really good stuff to keep practicing. And then, okay, I'll just share these next two, and then we'll have to come back to text from Bob, but I thought these were just so good. One was, in all caps, relax but don't collapse. Relax but don't collapse. So he listened to, I think it was episode maybe 19, where I'm talking about, the not swinging the pendulum all the way with the energy and having, your straight spine and your squishy muscles, kind of that idea of being alert and relaxed at the same time. And so I love what he said, just again, a really poignant way to put it, that is relax but don't collapse. Love that. So if that lands, take that. Take that from Bob. And then my last favorite thing that he said over the last few weeks, because I can imagine as you guys are listening to some of these, that he is not the only one having this experience. What he said was, oh my God, I am not ready to be a dad. So we're talking about reparenting. You are the adult now. You're not the child now. And as I have said, and I create space for on purpose to kind of let it land that you are the adult. No one's coming to save you. No one's coming to do this for you. This is your responsibility. The reason that I think it's important to have some time and space to let that idea marinate and linger is because so often this is the reaction. Is I'm not ready to be a parent. I didn't sign up for this. And in fact, I have worked with plenty of people who, when this idea comes up around parenting yourself with food, sometimes the response is, I don't want to have a child, which is why I don't have children. I made the decision a long time ago to not have to take responsibility for anyone else. And now it's kind of a rude awakening that I'm not ready to be a dad or a mom, but now I have to take care of me, and I'm not ready for that, or I don't want to do that, or I didn't sign up for that. And I think, again, that is the whole, that's the whole thing. And so we need space for you as the adult to also allow yourself that temper tantrum, if that's true for you, if that's how you feel. That it's so unfair, because then as Bob and I continued to talk about it a little bit, he said, I definitely didn't opt in to this. I didn't choose this, right? And that, again, very often comes up and is a very valid reaction. So that is why I share these updated texts with Bob, because I imagine, again, you too might be having some of these feelings. I certainly have. So I really appreciate being able to give it a voice and share these things. And then there's more of that we will come back to in a future episode. So that's our text from Bob update today. Okay, now that we heard from myself and Bob, there are some follow-up thoughts from the last episode, as well as things to build upon it. The first is something that I just keep thinking about this, especially now that I have shifted from doing a group program back into one-on-one coaching. What I'm noticing is how much everyone really needs their own thing. And the group program was wonderful. And there are limits to a group because everyone's in a different place. Everyone needs something different. And so even if the program and the curriculum can teach very important, necessary kind of foundational concepts to everyone, what I'm seeing with one-on-ones over and over and over again is just reflecting to me what I already know, which is everyone really needs their own approach. So what I keep thinking of and what I want to insert into this whole conversation, specifically as we're talking about the 3 levels and Maslow's hierarchy and kind of where we are in the process when it comes to something like intentional weight loss, is this quote. I don't remember where I saw it. I don't know where it's from, but it really stuck with me. And now it keeps coming up in my mind. That is, when someone is drowning, they don't need a swim lesson. They need a life jacket. So let's talk about this for a second. When someone is drowning, they need a life jacket, not a swim lesson. Now, a lot of the time, so the reason that this keeps coming up for me is because what it captures is this idea that it's not about this or that, it's about where you are in the process. So if someone is drowning, it's very likely that they do need a swimming lesson, but it's about the fact that when they're drowning, they can't take in a swimming lesson. When they're drowning, they need a life jacket. And then once you've got your life jacket and, you're back on land and you are back, wait for it, in safety, now you can actually do the swimming lesson and take it in. And so I'm thinking about this a lot as it relates to one-on-ones, because some people are drowning and need a life jacket. Some people don't need a life jacket. They're ready for a swim lesson. But I can't teach everyone at the same time because everyone's in a different place. And that's the thing with, the 3 levels. And that's the thing with Maslow's hierarchy is like, it's not about this or that, or good or bad, or right or wrong. It's about where is the individual and what do they need right now. Meeting the person where they are that is in front of me. And now with all the different tools that I have as a clinician, now I know how to meet people cognitively, if that's what they need, more mentally, more emotionally, somatically. There's a lot of behaviorally, there's a lot of different ways to come at it, but it really depends on where the person is. So I'm saying this because now I've said to you, it's what isn't going to work, what isn't safe, what isn't sustainable is going from pre-contemplation to action and going from being an absent parent to trying to enforce rules on yourself. That's not going to work. The same way that a lot of you, I think, from what I've seen, is like you are drowning and you're trying to give yourself a swimming lesson. And what you really need is, again, this is where it's like, you don't want to say, oh, I don't need a swimming lesson. What I need is a life jacket. What you really want to say is, right now I need a life jacket. And then once I get all that, okay, then I need a swimming lesson, right? And so it's the same kind of thing where it's like, I'm not saying release the goal of weight loss and never try to lose weight if you are in level 1. Right? What I'm saying is right now you need a life jacket, and then you establish that safety and presence and connection with yourself. Then later on, you can think about the swim lesson that you need, because it doesn't make it any less important or valuable or necessary. It just means you have to meet yourself where you are. So I'm saying that it's just a different way of me saying the same thing that I keep telling you, which is, again, you have to meet yourself where you are. And you may not want to be where you are, and you may not like where you are, and you may not be comfortable where you are. That is all okay. That's where the tender self-compassion comes in. But ultimately, it's an invitation, I think, to tell the truth, do an honest take of, are you still drowning? Do you need a life jacket? Or are you ready for the swimming lesson? And then also, for what it's worth, integrating this into your relationships with other people. Because very often, if someone comes to you when they're drowning, you might notice the urge or the tendency to teach them how to swim. And notice that, because what they really need is a life jacket first. So that's that today. And now the last thing I'm going to say about that, actually, I lied again. The last thing I'm going to say about it is, this is why I think, if we go back to the last episode, I talk about an absent parent or a previously absent parent coming in now and trying to like enforce rules. And like I said, for me, the way that I personally would respond to that is, who the fuck do you think you are? Right? Where were you when I needed you? I was a child and I had to act like an adult. And now I've been the adult here for so long. Now you want to come in and be the adult, right? That whole thing. So the reason I think about it this way too is because this is where I think a lot of people will say that they, or at least what I've heard is, I have an inner rebel, or my inner child is rebelling. And this goes back to something I said a long time ago, but this idea that is, my belief is, no, like a rebel only exists because it's in relationship to something. You're not rebelling. You have to be rebelling against something in order for you to be a rebel. And so I think very often this is what happens, is that we try to come back into our relationship with ourselves as that previously absent parent enforcing rules now. And then the inner child, quote unquote, is like, get the fuck out of here. Who do you think you are? Again, if it sounds anything like me and mine, which it may not, and it doesn't have to. But then we interpret that as my inner child is rebelling against me. And I just can't get my rebel on board. And I always am rebelling against myself. And it's like, it's not that you just quote unquote have a rebel. It's that this part of you knows that you haven't earned your trust yet. And again, it's wise. It's very wise and intelligent to not trust you out of nowhere. You've been absent. And at best, you've been absent because, again, for most of us, you've been abusive. And so it just makes so much sense. And again, it's not a problem if you have that part of you that's saying, I'm not following your rules. It's like, yeah, you shouldn't be following my rules. You don't even know me, right? So if we look at it from that lens, it's the harsh conditions that create a rebellion. It's not you, like when you're treating yourself with love and kindness and compassion and empathy and understanding, you're not fighting against yourself because you feel safe in your own hands. So that's where, again, you want to think about where you are. And if what you need is a life jacket, what you need is to establish safety with yourself first, right? It's like, because it's the same as saying, like, I'm trying to give them a swim lesson. Why can't they just listen? And it's like, because they're drowning, because they're drowning. And it's this whole, to me, what it captures is that you as the parent, you have good intentions. You always have. You always have. No matter how harmful and abusive the behavior may have been, your intentions were to help yourself. Again, you did exactly what you thought you were supposed to do. So your intention to provide yourself with a swimming lesson is solid and sound, and we appreciate that, right? But at the same time, what gets lost in translation, I find, is that, again, you may be coming from this place of, I'm trying to help. I'm trying to teach you how to swim. Why can't you just get on board with it? And it's like, that's not where I am right now. That's not where we are right now. We're not there yet. Right now, we need safety. Okay? So now that is all I'm going to say about that today. Okay, moving on. The next thing that I've been thinking a lot about is what I mean when I say, I just want to say a little bit more about what I mean when I say we are raising the level of consciousness through which we come at this. Because that's another thing that's like, what does that even mean? And if I heard myself say that years ago, I'd be like, what? Like, again, what even, who even are you? Like, what does that even mean? Make it make sense. And so I want to break it down a little bit because I finally had something occur to me and I was like, oh, this to me is kind of exactly what I mean when I talk about this. So I'm going to tell you another story. When I was in college, I think it was maybe my sophomore, junior year. No, whatever. Doesn't matter. Probably my sophomore year of college. So I was an international studies major at Michigan. Go Blue. Because when I was applying to school, I started undecided. And then people kept asking me, what do I want to do with my life? Like, I fucking knew. And, my answer to that was always travel the world. I want to travel the world and see the world. And so I ended up studying international studies. And again, at the time, I had no idea what I was going to do with my life. But then it was actually really cool because within international studies, there were 4 different concentrations. And my concentration was comparative culture and identity. So I didn't do the like security and norms one. I didn't do the like politics one. I did the I want to study cultures and societies one. And so it was really cool. It was a mixture of like sociology and poli-sci and anthropology and philosophy. There were a lot of ways that I could get my credits for it, and I really enjoyed it. And then in hindsight, then a few years later, I end up in grad school for social work, which is more the study of society and people and humans. And so it all ended up making sense. As Steve Jobs says, you can't connect the dots looking forward. You can only connect them looking backwards. So it makes a lot of sense looking backwards. But at the time, I had no idea what I was doing. Anyway, so as part of my college education, I had to take, what did they call it? Like research or like I don't know, whatever. I had to take something that satisfied essentially a math or math adjacent credit. And at this point, I hadn't done math in like years, literally. I graduated high school a year early, and my last year of high school, I didn't need to take math because I was a year ahead. So anyway, it had literally been years, and I hate math. I hate math. And so I did everything I could to avoid math. Okay, why I'm telling you the longest version of the story, I'm not sure. But what I'm trying to get to is, to satisfy that requirement, I took oceanography. So the study of the ocean, I guess. And I think it was oceanography and astronomy were the 2 classes that I took for like the math science credit. Okay. So one day, I was a really good student. I was a straight A student. I took my studies very seriously. And so I never skipped class. I never did anything like that. I never skipped class in high school. Ever. I wouldn't even like think about skipping a class in high school. But then I was in college, and, literally no one knows or gives a shit if you're not in class, especially it's like the University of Michigan is huge. So these big classes, it was like, all right. So I took it upon myself one day to skip oceanography. And the only way that I could justify it to myself was I was skipping oceanography for the sake of studying for something else. Like I was skipping one class to do work for another or to study for an exam or something. Okay, so I skip oceanography. I feel a little bit bad about it, but I justify it and keep moving. And then I talk to my dad. And here's what I want to tell you. I want to impart some of the wisdom that he shared with me about that. I told him that I was basically complaining. I was complaining about this stupid class and this stupid credit and what a waste of time and what a waste of energy. And I'm never, ever going to use this knowledge because I don't give a fuck about oceanography. And why do I have to do this? And higher education is such a scam. And like all just going on and on. Okay. And I want to tell you what my dad told me because I think it was really good advice. And I think about it a lot these days. He basically was saying to me, you're not taking oceanography, or stop thinking about oceanography for the sake of oceanography. I know you don't care about oceanography. We all know that you're not going to use this knowledge. You're not even going to remember any of this. We know that you're not taking oceanography for the sake of oceanography. But here's the thing. In life, you are constantly, especially as you get older, you are going to have to do things that you don't like and that you don't enjoy and that make you uncomfortable and that test you and that piss you off. So instead of thinking about you're going through oceanography so that you can learn about the ocean, think about oceanography as a test of your endurance. And just start seeing that you have to do this thing because it's a requirement. You don't have to like it. You see where I got a lot of this from? You don't have to like it. You don't have to enjoy it. You have to do it. And so instead of fighting that and resisting that, can you just be in a relationship with oceanography where you see it as a test of your endurance and then see, how you can get through it? And I remember being like, okay, all right, fine. If I'm allowed to say, I think that this is bullshit and I think that this is stupid and I don't want to do anything about this, but now it's a test of my endurance. It's not about the class. It's not about the grades. It's not about the information. It's a test of my endurance. Can I use this class to practice being uncomfortable for an extended period of time, because it will support me in strengthening this muscle of tolerating discomfort and showing up for things that I don't want to do in my life. And that allowed me to get through it in a very different way. Now, I'm telling you all of this because when I think about what it means to raise the consciousness, this to me is like an actual example where it's like, okay, instead of seeing oceanography as oceanography, see the semester of oceanography as a test of endurance. See it that way. And then be in relationship with the thing. It's the same thing. Nothing, right? Nothing about it has changed. But be in a different relationship with it, where instead of seeing it again for what it is, you're looking at how it can support you in strengthening life skills that you will need beyond just oceanography. And that to me is a raise of consciousness. It's like seeing it differently and being like, oh, okay, it's not actually about what's on the surface. It's not actually about any of this here. It's about what's underneath. It's a deeper meaning to all of it. Now, I'm saying this because this is what I mean when I'm talking about intentional weight loss. It's not about weight. It's not even about so much the relationship you have with your body. It's about seeing all of it as the mechanism through which you learn how to reparent yourself. It's about saying this is the same way it wasn't about oceanography. It's not about weight. It's not about food. It's not about your body. It's about using these things and this practice and this pursuit as the opportunity to strengthen the skill and the practice of self-love. That's what it's all coming down to. So I wanted to give you that example because to me, it illustrates again what it means to say, kind of don't get distracted by what's here on the surface. We have to go deeper. We have to go deeper to our relationship. But again, the consciousness through which we see how we're even perceiving it. And so the same way that I was able to say, oh, this isn't about oceanography. This is about endurance. This is about tolerating something I don't want to do for the sake of getting good at that. It's very much the same as like, this isn't about weight or your body or about food. This is about how can you love yourself? How can you express love to yourself, for yourself, through yourself? That's what this is really about. And so if you can think of it that way, right, every time I started falling back into that mindset of like, I don't even care about oceanography, I then had a voice in my head that was like, it doesn't matter. You don't have to care about oceanography, but can you practice doing something that you don't want to do? And I was like, all right, fine. I see the value in that. And that's very much the same here where it's like, if you have those thoughts, you go back into that old way of thinking that this is all about your body and food and all of that. You can remind yourself that actually, this is where you forget and then you remember. And then you remember, oh, wait, this isn't about any of that stuff. This is about how do I love myself and express love for myself through this. Now, okay, right. Now I know, right, how to move through this. Because when love is the intention, when you start doing things outside of that, when you start again hurting, abusing, harming yourself, it's no longer aligned with your intention. And so if you raise the consciousness around this whole conversation and you remember that what this is about is embodying love, now when you, again, go back into that old way of doing it, it's like, oh, wait, that's not... Right. This isn't about the weight. This is about love. Okay, got it. Right. That is, again, to me, what it means to raise the consciousness, because then, right, you can't solve a problem on the same level of consciousness that created it. Now when you understand it's not about food and eating in your body on that level, and it is actually about self-love, now you can solve the problem. So I hope that example makes sense. Again, to you, the way that it does to me. Okay, that's all on that. Okay, so now let's build off of the previous episode and some of the things coming up there, because what I really want to talk about today is the fact that, again, you're a spiritual being having a physical experience with an animal brain in a social context, surviving on food, and you want to either lose weight or change your body for an aesthetic goal. Because very often I get this question around, is it okay that I care what I look like? Is it okay that I care what I look like? Because I think that there's a lot of pressure sometimes to just not care, to be so resistant, or I'm not sure exactly what word I want to use, but to be so resistant toward the idea that you do actually care. And I think in denial of that, right? We don't want to care, or not, some of us don't want to care, but we find ourselves caring anyway. And so how do we negotiate this? How do we reconcile this? And that's where I want to go with the rest of this episode. Okay. So to kick us off here, I think about the fact that, as you've heard me say many times, your body is your home. So let's go back. Module 1, okay? You are a soul with a body. You are not a body with a soul. Said this on the last episode. We need to keep coming back to this because it's the foundation, okay? So your body, you are not your body. You are the soul that lives in your body, which is to say your body is your home. This is what carries you. This is what houses you while you're here. You know, your meat suit, your earth suit, whatever you want to call it. This is where you live. This is not you. This is where you live. Okay. So now that we know that your body is your home, I like to think about this, like how you're in relationship with your home and what it looks like. And your relationship, not just with your home in general, but what your home looks like. So before we get there, again, if it takes a moment, and I really want to invite you to pause this if that's what will support the marination of this idea. If you hear me say your body is your home and you are the soul living in your body, and that feels really foreign and unfamiliar, really, like, let it settle for a moment, because you can't rush through understanding that or taking that in. So anyway, let's say you've taken it in. You know your body is your home. Consider how that might inform your relationship toward it. And how is that different than the way that you have been thinking about it or the way that you have been treating it? And this could be your very optional homework assignment for this week, or one of them. Those are journal prompts. Those are really good journal prompts. Like, if your body is your home, how is that different than the way that you've been thinking about it and the way that you've been treating it? And just pay attention to that. And this isn't, again, ever about good or bad or right or wrong. It's not about shaming or blaming yourself for not thinking about it this way previously. It's just about how is it different, to see where it might take you. Now, you understand your body is your home. So I think about the way that you feel about your actual home. Okay? And I'll use myself as an example because I can't speak for you. But the reason that I love and I'm really grateful for my home is because I have one. Is because I get to live in it. Because without it, I know this is ridiculously obvious, but like, hear me out. Without my home, I would be without a home. And so I don't love and appreciate and feel grateful for where I live because of what it looks like. I love and appreciate and feel grateful for my home because it keeps me safe. Because when it's raining, I have somewhere to go inside. And when it's really hot, I have somewhere to go inside. And when it's really cold, I have somewhere to go inside. And when there's scary dogs or whatever, people on the streets. I have somewhere that I can go inside. It keeps me safe. It protects me. It's my home. I love and feel grateful for and appreciate my home because it surrounds me and it holds me, and it's where I get to stay safe and where I get to go to sleep at night and where I get to make my food in the morning and where I get to cuddle with my cat and where I get to decorate in a way that expresses me and where I get to... It's my home. I love it because it's my home. Okay? I don't love it because of what it looks like. and it's okay if I care what it looks like. Okay? So we're talking about holding both of these at the same time. So ultimately, we are building on the previous episode where I'm talking to you about love, real love. And now think about in relationship with other people. So we're not just talking about in relationship to your home, but in relationship with other people. Real love. I'm not talking about transactional relationships. I'm talking about real, pure, genuine connection. You don't love the people that are in your life because of what they look like. You don't. Because love, again, love doesn't exist on that dimension. Love doesn't exist on the physical dimension. To love another person is to see the face of God. Love is spiritual because it's energy, because you can't touch it, okay? So you don't love the people in your life because of how they appear to you. You don't love them as physical beings. You love them on a spiritual level because love exists on a spiritual level. And so if you consider that, you don't love your home because of what it looks like. Well, again, I don't. I'll speak for me. I don't love my home because of what it looks like. I don't love the people in my life because of what they look like. And I don't love myself because of what I look like. I love my home because it keeps me safe and protects me and houses me. I love the people in my life because of the connection that we have. And I love myself for a lot of reasons that are completely unrelated to what I look like and what I weigh, right? I don't love more or less the people in my life because of what they weigh. And even just saying that out loud, it's like, it's a, to me, preposterous idea to be determining how much love I have for someone else because of what they look like. They exist on different planes. What you look like is physical and love is spiritual. They don't even meet. So as I'm saying this, I also just want to invite you to consider how this shows up, because it's not just in relation to your body and what your body looks like. It also can be reflected to you in how you see other people and how you see yourself, and whether or not you feel, again, love toward other people or toward yourself. But just pay attention to the relationship between those things, right? It's like, do you? Because sometimes this is the truth. And I've worked with enough people to know that this is sometimes the honest truth. And I want to invite you listening to this to tell the honest truth to yourself. When you think about the people in your life, you might actually notice that there's even an urge or a tendency to say, I do actually like that person less because of what they weigh. Or my feelings about that person changed when their body changed. You might notice that internally, and that's okay. Because again, I'm not here to sugarcoat shit. You have been really indoctrinated, and you have potentially internalized this system where the spiritual and the physical are so interconnected that you actually genuinely might feel more favorable toward people who fit the beauty ideal in your mind than people who don't. And that is just something for you to pay attention to, because that to me is what I would call that it's a confusion. It's not your fault. And I genuinely want to say that I believe it's a confusion. It's like things got mixed up, things got lost in translation as you were moving through the socialization process, where you still have that old wiring that how people look. And again, most of us have internalized this about ourselves, but what I'm saying is a lot of people have also taken that message and still project it onto other people. And you may not want that, and you may not believe in it, you may not align with it, you may know that you shouldn't, quote unquote, have different feelings about people depending on what they look like, but we are here to tell the truth, because you can't do anything about it if you're not being honest about it. And so I just want to say that, because again, I've worked with enough people who will say, no, I see that person and I see that their body has changed and I do feel differently about them. And it's like, okay, notice that. We're not shaming it and we're not pathologizing it. Again, it makes total, you have an animal brain in a social context, but you want to be aware of that and then come back to even just dipping your toe into a relationship where you come back to what it is you love about a person, what it is you love about yourself, what it is you love about your home. Because those things, I don't want to say shouldn't be physical, but again, there's a part of me that wants to say they can't be physical, because you don't, again, pure, true love is seeing the face of God. It's not your weight or body or shape or size. And so that is where, if you think about your body as your home, now again, we can start to navigate this conversation where you don't love yourself any more or less because of what it looks like. And there's nothing wrong with you for caring what it looks like or having opinions of what it looks like. So the first thing I'll say about it is you are allowed to like or not like the appearance, whatever that is. You're allowed. You have permission. And the reason, again, I'm saying it this way is because I think there's been a lot of conditioning around, like, you shouldn't feel this way. You shouldn't have these thoughts. Well, you know what? A lot of us do, and that's fine. So again, you're allowed. You're allowed to not like what it looks like. And at the same time, if you're in that place where you don't like what it looks like, you're also allowed, and this is where I'm going to say more about this, you're also allowed to do something about that. You're allowed to say, I don't like what it looks like, and I want to change what it looks like. That's all fine. Now, the problem is when you are so, again, defined by your physical, that's where, again, I'm not going to go through the whole last episode again, but that's where it becomes a stress response gets activated, because we're so over-identified with it. So it's not the liking or not liking the appearance, but it's about pairing that with a deep appreciation and gratitude for the home as it is, okay? So now you can say, I love, appreciate, and I'm so grateful for my home, my body. These are all the things it allows me to do. These are all the things that I'm connected to it. These are all the things that, again, I wouldn't be able to do without living in a human body. I'm grateful for those things, and I have love and appreciation for those things. And at the same time, I do want to change the way that it looks. And so you're not conflating the love you have for your body as your home as the same as, your identity being wrapped up in the appearance of it. So how do you know? How do you know if you are in this place that I would say is kind of safe enough for you to move forward? How do you know that you're really seeing yourself and treating yourself as, loving in the spiritual dimension, and having that relationship now translate to your relationship with your body and changing your body? Well, here's what I want to put on your radar is that here's how you know you're in a pretty, I don't want to use the word good place with it, but a safe place, is that you are treating yourself with as much love, care, warmth, understanding, empathy, compassion, all those things. This is all those words to me fall under the umbrella of love. When you are treating yourself with as much love at the biggest, heaviest weight that you're at, as you do when you are in the lightest and smallest body you've ever been in. If, as your body changes and fluctuates in weight, shape, size, and appearance, you stay consistent in how much love and compassion you turn toward yourself, that's the foundation of safety, okay? Because what that means is no matter what your body looks like from the outside, you maintain the same position of being a loving, caring parent. And when you can do that, now you are, what you are embodying in the relationship towards yourself is that you don't have to look a certain way in order for you to be worthy of love. So back to the requirements of the internal environment for creativity, you have to have a warm, nurturing relationship with yourself. This is the foundation. And so you also have to, again, remember that you are of unconditional worth. You are of unconditional worth and value. And what that means is under every condition. Okay, so if you are in the thinnest body or the fattest body, it's unconditional love. It doesn't matter what the condition is. If you are overeating or undereating, it doesn't matter. Under every condition, you are worthy of love. And when your love toward and for yourself is unconditional, then you can go ahead and change the outside. You can change the appearance of it, but that's the thing you want to pay attention to. How do you know if you're in this place? Well, do you treat yourself differently depending on what you look like? Do you talk to yourself differently depending on the number on the scale? That's what you want to pay attention to. Because if the answer is yes, if you notice that you are really loving and gentle and kind when your weight is what you want it to be, but you are not loving and gentle and kind when your weight is not what you want it to be, that is conditional love. And that's what a lot of us have been taught when it comes to our bodies and worth. What we've been taught is you deserve love when you look this way, and you don't deserve love when you look that way. So now you're the parent, which means you get to decide, do you want to keep doing that to yourself or not? Because if you want to feel safe enough to engage in something like safe and sustainable weight loss, intentional weight loss, it is, again, a necessary requirement that you lovingly, gently, and respectfully cut that shit out. Because that paradigm of conditional love, that's part of the old consciousness. That's the problem. So now if we want to solve the problem, solving the problem means embodying unconditional love for yourself, regardless of your size, body, shape, or weight. So that's also the next homework assignment. That's the next thing to practice is, can you be as loving towards yourself when you don't behave the way you want to, when you don't look the way you want to, when you don't weigh what you want to? Can you be even more, arguably, loving towards yourself in those moments and under those conditions as you would when you are, behaving favorably, or when you're proud of yourself, or things like that? That's what you get to practice now. And then another thing I just want to put on your radar as it comes to this conversation, I don't think this was my original thought, but in having this conversation many times in different communities and such about your body being your home, another thing that someone said to me once that really struck me that I think is important to keep in mind with this is, sometimes we all know, or I know some people, maybe you don't, that would give all of their time, energy, money, and resources to fixing the outside because they are so preoccupied with what the outside looks like and what other people think of what their outside looks like, that then you go into their home and it's empty. There's no furniture. There's no bed. There's no lighting. And it's cold. And that's also what I want you to consider in the relationship you have with your body and yourself, is that it just gets imbalanced a lot of the time. A lot of us are just out of balance because, again, it's okay for you to care what it looks like. But when you give everything you have to the outside, so much so that the inside is cold and dark and empty, it's imbalanced. And that, again, is what we want to pay attention to, because it's not about, I'm not here to say it's right or wrong or good or bad. If that feels aligned for you, if that's what you want to do from a place of choice and safety and freedom, is you want to take all of your resources to get it to look differently, then go ahead and do that. If you want the inside of your home to be empty, cold, and dark, that's up to you. You can do that. I don't want that. I don't want that. I personally would much rather nurture the well-being of the inside, because that's where I live. And also, maybe with any extra resources, I'll start paying attention to the outside. And at the very least, I don't have to deny that I care what the outside looks like. It's just not my priority, because I get Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Because right, the whole thing is like, it's not my priority. I don't need it for survival. My identity is not wrapped up in it. I don't define myself by it. And it's also part of the human experience that I care what it looks like. Okay. So basically what I'm saying is, if you want safe, sustainable, intentional weight loss to happen, you must be embodied in unconditional love towards yourself. That's what it's going to keep coming down to. And I'm going to keep saying it in a million different ways, but that's what this is. So now let's say you understand, love, appreciate, and have gratitude for your body as your home. You are treating yourself as a spiritual being with love and compassion, no matter what you think or feel or behave or choose, or any of those things, no matter what you look like, no matter the size of your body, you are unconditionally loving towards yourself. And don't breeze past this, because I would be willing to bet that if you're listening to this, this might be a growth edge for you. So take this seriously. Take it seriously, hold it gently, but take it seriously. Okay, this part, the part about loving yourself unconditionally, take it the most seriously. Okay, so now you're doing that. Great. And welcome, ultimately, to the elevated level of consciousness through which we need to see this in order to solve the problem. Love, it's all love. Okay, so the other thing I want to tell you about this, couple things, is I want to acknowledge that there was a period of time, definitely right after my weight loss, where I rejected all of this. And I think, if I look at the way that, in my opinion and experience, the anti-diet movement responds to something like the number on the scale, I think what I've seen is that because weighing ourselves, or something like weighing ourselves, at one point felt so scary and dangerous and threatening, and it carried so much meaning and significance, and we used to beat ourselves up about it, that we kind of, again, it became too painful and scary that we swung the pendulum over to never weighing ourselves, never looking at the number on the scale, and really seeing it and being in relationship with it like it's a predator. And I do think, and I teach this as module 5 and 6 of the program, that I think that there's really a way to be in relationship with something like the number on the scale where you don't have to deny it completely. I don't think, for me, again, I don't feel freedom is running away from or avoiding anything. And so if the relationship toward the number on the scale is like, I can't, you're not free. You're not free from it. It still has more power than you do. It's making the decisions. And so I'm saying all this because I do think that there's a way to hold all of it at the same time where you can say, okay, my weight in the grand scheme of health, mental, emotional, spiritual, physical, physiological, environmental, social, financial, there's all these different kinds of health. In the grand scheme of things, my weight tells me very little. And just because it tells me very little doesn't mean that it's not part of the conversation at all. I can get some data and information about my health and my well-being from my weight some of the time. Sure. So there's kind of, again, the nuanced gray area with it. And this is definitely something that depends on the person and where the person is, because we all have different relationships with something like the scale, depending on where we are in the journey. Okay. the reason I'm saying all of this, using the scale as an example, don't get too distracted by that, is for me, I think that I so deeply rejected anything that might suggest that I kind of really cared what I looked like. And I've talked to you about this already, but I think especially after my weight loss, even though, it's complicated, it's tricky, because there are parts of me that were like so proud and happy about what I looked like, but I still didn't feel safe with it. And I think that's the thing that really sticks out to me here, is I didn't feel safe letting myself care what I looked like. Because if I cared what I looked like, maybe I would take it too far. I didn't trust myself to care what I looked like, because maybe caring what I looked like, again, would end up in danger. And I didn't want to do that to myself. I didn't want to hurt myself. And so I just kind of rejected all of it. And so I'm saying that because I think the same way that we tend to reject the scale entirely, like I can't look at that, I can't see that, I don't want to be in a relationship with that at all, is not because the scale is actually harmful. The scale is innocent. The scale, everything about the scale, your gravitational pull to the earth, it's all innocent. It's objective data. It's all the meaning that we make of it that makes it scary, and a relationship with it that makes it scary. And so the same thing to me is true here, where you caring what you look like is not a problem. It's not inherently something that is dangerous and scary. It's that we have been so imbalanced that I don't think we sometimes trust ourselves to be in relationship with the aesthetic or the appearance, because we can be imbalanced in our approach. We can take it too far. We can go too far to the extreme. We can do too much. And most of us have before. And so it doesn't feel safe to allow ourselves to care about our aesthetic goals or needs. And again, the reason I'm saying all of this is because I don't think that's helpful. I have not seen it be helpful to just deny this. To say, I don't care. I don't care. Doesn't bother me. Not important. Maybe, again, that it shouldn't, in quotes, matter. Because maybe you're way more than a body. You matter way more than that. You are lovable beyond that. You know those things. And so, again, it becomes kind of like we swing the pendulum, where it's like, now it doesn't matter at all. And I think this is another way that we deny parts of ourselves. And that's what we need to pay attention to. Because if we're talking about unconditional love for ourselves, embodying authenticity, sometimes embodying authenticity is to say, yeah, I care what I look like. And even maybe I want to change what I look like for the sake of how I feel about it. So my intention here is to just tell the truth about it, so that we can work with it rather than against it, so that we can move forward with it rather than fighting it. Because that's what I keep seeing, is it's like, it's either, again, kind of diet culture where it's so imbalanced that everything is about how you look, that the inside of your home is empty, or we swing the pendulum over to, I don't care at all. And that's, listen, here's the thing. If that feels true for you, then that feels true for you. And I want you to run with that. If you listening to this are like, no, I literally genuinely do not give a single shit about what I look like or how other people look at me, great. I love that for you. Run with it. And if you're listening to this and you're like, you know what, I do actually, if I'm telling the truth, like the real truth, the whole truth and nothing but the truth, there is at least a part of me that does care or feel preoccupied with that, then what I'm doing here is saying, that's okay. That's okay. Let that be here, because we can't balance things out between the internal and external, the spiritual and the physical, if you don't tell the truth about it. Okay, now, last couple things. What this all reminded me of was when I lived in I didn't live in Newport Beach. I lived in Irvine, but I spent a lot of time in Newport Beach. and which you've heard about a little bit. Okay, so what I'm thinking about is right before I moved out to California, which was just hilariously coincidental, I guess. Before I moved out to California, I wanted my hair to be pink. I had this like beautiful image of brown, like my brown hair, my naturally brown hair turning into like a pink ombre. So it was like pink and brown. And I just like, I kept visualizing it and I really wanted it. And so I went to the hair salon and I was like, give me this. And it looked so good for like 48 hours. And then almost all of the pink washed out of my hair. And if you know anything about hair, which I didn't at all, in order to put pink in brown hair, what you have to do first is bleach it. You have to make it bleach blonde and then put the pink in. So once the pink wore out after literally 2 days, I now was blonde. And that was not at all part of the plan. And it wasn't like cute blonde. It was like just bleach blonde. So I had to go now. And then I think it was when I got to California, and the reason I said it was like hilariously coincidental is because it was like, I didn't plan on being blonde, but right around the time that I moved to Southern California, of all places, is when I ended up blonde by accident. So anyway, so I go to this hair salon to get my hair kind of fixed so that I could, you know, it could be like real blonde, not just like one bleached mess. After I tried putting pink in it a few more times, and I just had to give up because my hair would not take it. Talk about radical acceptance of what is. You know, you could keep trying, but it just wasn't going to happen. So I go, and I remember the hairdresser who was doing the color on my hair. And we were shooting the shit because, you know, if you get your hair done, you get highlights like this, it takes hours, which I was new to. But so I'm like, you know, I'm shooting the shit with this girl. And I'm asking her how she got into styling hair, what she likes about it, you know, I'm basically interviewing her for a podcast. And I remember at the time, now this was, you know, 2020, just about, maybe 2019 still. At the time, I was still kind of judgmental about some of the things she was saying to me, because I remember her saying, but she planted a seed, and it did stick with me. I was letting it marinate, because what she was saying was that she loves to see how good people feel when they feel like they look good. and to see, you know, how much joy and gratitude people had when they felt like they looked good, when they felt like they looked better. And her whole thing was, you know, she had this kind of deep way of talking about the way she serves people and the way that she supports people on this earth in her lifetime is by helping them feel good about their physical appearance, by helping them change their physical appearance, by improving their appearance. And I remember at the time having a really hard time with that, because I was all, you know, we are not defined by our looks and don't define people by their bodies, and we shouldn't feel better about ourselves when we look better. The problem, you know, that's part of the problem. We should feel good about ourselves all the time, despite what we look like. And it's like, again, I was in that place of like, I had swung the pendulum over to denial, just denial, that when she was saying people feel so good when they look good, I was like, no, you know, that's a problem. And I was just fighting it and judging it and in resistance to it because I didn't want it to be true, because I didn't feel safe or comfortable with that being true. And so I was in resistance to it. And so I think about this still, because even at the time, I remember the way she was talking about it carried such, like, to her, it really held such meaning and significance, because she was really helping people feel better. And I think that, like, deep down, even though I was still denying this part of me, there was a part of me that knew what she was saying was true. What she was saying was true. And here I am getting highlights in my hair to look a certain way, to feel better about how I look, knowing full well that I'm going to walk out of the salon feeling better than when I walked in there. And I didn't want to hear any of that. I didn't want that to be true. Because I was judging it. And, because then it was like, now I'm part of the problem and all this stuff. So that's why I'm saying this, is because I just want to liberate and free, or support you in freeing the parts of you that maybe are still in that prison of denial, where it feels like the only way to engage safely in a conversation like this is to pretend that you don't care. And by letting out, I think about the quote, the end of the quote, we're not afraid. Okay, but hold on. Our biggest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our biggest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. But the end of that quote is as we liberate ourselves, we liberate others. I'm paraphrasing, but that's the idea. Is like, I was able to, through years and years, liberate and free the part of me that I felt had to be locked away, that cared about appearance and aesthetics. And again, that's just silencing a part of me. And that's not helpful. And so my hope is that as I liberate myself, I can also inspire liberation in you. That is, it's okay to tell the truth about this. If you need to be told explicitly that it's okay for you to care, it is. The thing you want to pay attention to is not getting imbalanced. And we're going to talk a lot more about that. And I'm going to help you with that. But first, we have to free all the parts of us to be here. And the animal brain and the social context that cares what you look like, that's part of it. If that's part of it for you, then that's part of it for you. If it's not, it's not. But if it is, it's welcome to be here. And then, okay, 2 more things I want to say. The follow-up to that is, so my ex, who, if you are in the Patreon, you heard me talk about this relationship already. But my ex used to love basketball. And at one point, fun fact about me, I had every single NBA team memorized, which I definitely do not anymore. But at a certain point, I did. Because he loved basketball. And there was one, so while we were dating, was also some of the time that I was going through some of this, where, like, I know this has come up, some of my coaching calls, we've had this conversation, where as I was in this period of my life, where I didn't want to care about any of this, and I didn't want to tell the truth about any of this, I remember telling him specifically, like, do not make comments about my body or how my body looks, because he would so innocently compliment me on my body or my outfit or whatever. And I turned that into, he's objectifying me. And he wasn't, but I didn't, again, have a relationship with my own looks and appearance that felt safe. And so at a certain point, I was like, don't make any comments about my body. Like, this is where I am in my own healing and recovery. Like, don't say anything about it. And then it was quite funny because we dated for years. And then later, at a later point, I remember like saying to him something like, I'm getting all dressed up and like, can you say something about, can you like make a comment? Like, I want to hear how good I look. And I just remember him being like, okay, but you specifically told me to not do that a while ago. So like, I'm not doing that. And so I'm saying that because that also is just a reflection of like, again, where I was at with all of it. He didn't do anything. It was me and my own relationship with it. Anyway, so there's so much I want to say about what it's like being in a relationship while going through all this, but I will do that another time. But his love for basketball, here's where it all comes together. As I was navigating all of this, I remember him saying to me, he taught me this quote. I don't know which basketball player said it. Maybe one of you will know at one point. But what he was saying to me, or what we would end up coming back to every time we had this conversation was, when you look good, you feel good. When you feel good, you play good. And when you play good, they pay good. And again, I don't know who said this originally, but when I was in this place of like, I don't want to feel good because of how I look, he would just say, when you look good, you feel good. When you feel good, you play good. And when you play good, they pay good. So, hey, that's just the reality of it. And we don't have to deny that. We don't have to judge that. We don't have to be afraid of that. And so that is something that still to this day, it has been years, goes through my head about this, is when you look good, you feel good. When you feel good, you play good. And when you play good, they pay good. And whether you're an NBA star or not, I think there's truth to that we can all integrate into our real life and just like, again, be honest about. And then, okay, now one more thing and then another thing after that. But I'm inserting in a conversation I had recently with a client I'm working with currently right now. One of the most amazing things about having conversations with her about intentional weight loss is I remember when she came into a session and we're working on a lot of the, again, foundational stuff you're hearing here about feeling uncomfortable and not unsafe, caring about what you look like, but not defining yourself by what you look like this very, against nuanced gray area with all of it. And she came in, and I want to give this to you as something to just keep in your mind because I thought it was brilliant. She was like, I'm starting to understand that weight loss is kind of like getting a spray tan. Like, I think that it will improve what I look like. I will feel better if I do it. And also, if I don't, whatever. Like, it doesn't make a difference. It doesn't mean anything about me. I'm not a better or worse person. It's a spray tan. It, and I loved that. And I want you to also think about it that way, where it's like, again, you can want it. There's nothing wrong with wanting it. And there's nothing wrong with feeling good because you've got it. And also, if you don't make it to the spray tan today, okay, it really doesn't matter. The stakes are so low. And I'm going to keep repeating that. You want the stakes to feel so low for you to be in what I'm calling recreational weight loss, right? So the spray tan analogy is like, it's okay that you care what it looks like. It's okay that you will feel better if you look better. Fine. But it's not determining how worthy of love you are, because it's not defining who you are. And that's what we want to pay attention to. Okay. Now, the last thing before I go is I've been thinking a lot about Ram Dass. Ram Dass, the spiritual teacher, author, etc. Some of you may know him. I've been thinking about him a lot because one of the things that I appreciate about Ram Dass is, I think for a spiritual teacher, he was one of, in my opinion and my experience, I don't know all the spiritual teachers out there, but he feels to me more maybe grounded in reality of the human experience than some of the others that feel a little bit more like in the clouds and completely untethered and ungrounded. Like sometimes, this is my thing with spirituality, spiritual teachers, spiritual texts. Sometimes it's like, it's a little bit too out there. It's a little bit too like in the clouds that it feels like it's not grounded in, again, reality. So anyway, that's another thing I could say a lot about. But Ram Dass would talk about how to navigate this human experience. And I think that he would appreciate my take that you're a spiritual being having a physical experience with an animal brain in a social context, because that's some of what he would talk about, is trying to reconcile all these different parts of the self, right? And how we have this like primitive animalistic part, but we also have this socially conditioned part, but we also have this higher self spiritual part. And so that's why I appreciate, some of his texts and takes on things. But I want to read you just this quick Ram Dass quote that I keep, again, coming back to here. That is, the spiritual journey is not about getting high. It's about becoming whole. The spiritual journey is not about getting high. It's about becoming whole. And there are a few ways that I could talk about this or interpret this, but the reason I'm putting it here is because I think some of the time there is part of the conflict that we experience internally, some of the tension and contraction around this whole conversation, is that we potentially can see ourselves as a spiritual being. And because we are identified with our spirituality, and not in an over-identified way, but because we understand our identity as a spiritual being, that it becomes a rejection of the human and the parts of being human that we can't get out of and can't get rid of, such as caring what you look like, or having aesthetic goals or desires. And so all of that to say, the spiritual journey is not about getting high, it's about becoming whole. The spiritual journey is about having your spiritual experience, your spiritual being, your physical experience, your animal brain, and your social context all together in wholeness, all coexisting safely, peacefully amongst one another. And so the human part of us, the naturally human part that wants to look a certain way, is part of wholeness. It's part of us. It's not all of us. It's not who we are. It's not what we are. We are, again, way more than that. And the spiritual journey is about becoming whole. And so if the spiritual journey is about becoming whole, and part of you cares at least a little bit about what you look like, wholeness is not denying that. Wholeness is not getting rid of that. Wholeness is not suffocating that for the rest of your life. You can't get rid of it. So wholeness is an invitation to say, okay, I am more than my body. I love and accept and appreciate myself as much more than my body. And for the sake of wholeness, for telling the truth of who I am and what I am, this is part of it. It's part of it. And again, it's like a spray tan. It's not a big part. It's a little teeny part. It doesn't make that big of a difference, but it's here. It's part of the experience. It's part of the conversation. It has to be. So, like I said, all of this is really shared with the intention of you creating the safety that you need in the relationship you have with yourself now, not just around food and eating, but specifically around your body and your understanding of your body, your conceptualization of what your body even is. Again, now, if you see it for what it is and you are infusing love into the relationship you have with it, now it's okay, and again, safe, for you to care what it looks like and for you to actually take action aligned with your intention to change what it looks like. And that's where I'm going to leave it today, is just this whole idea of when your body is your home and you understand and you have that kind of relationship with it and you are focusing more on, furnishing the insides than perfecting the outsides. These are the things that will support the foundation of the safety that you need. And again, I don't need to keep saying the same thing over and over and over and over again, but this is what I want you to really think about and practice over the next week or so. Like, can you notice how you are treating yourself, talking to yourself, and have that be unconditional love? I mean, that's the only way to say it. It's unconditioned. Under every circumstance, under all conditions, you are equally loving. And then we will continue to talk about, now again, what do you do with it? What do you actually tangibly do with it? But we can't get into the behavior change component of it if you still think that you are your body, right? Like, this is a prerequisite as far as I'm concerned. So that's where I'm going to leave it. I hope all of this makes sense, as always. If you have any questions, follow-up thoughts, please let me know, lisaschlossberg@gmail.com. And as always, please, pretty please, rate, review, subscribe, and share. Share the pod. And I will see you at Omega, July 12th to the 17th. And I will see you again next week. I love you. Bye.